It all started approximately 40,000 years ago. Our species, commonly called the efaron, originated from a world tens of thousands of galaxies away from the one we inhabit today. The name of that world has been lost to history, but legends tell that it was one of lush tropical grasslands and forests engulfing the entire planet. Our ancestors managed to go from cave-dwelling primitives to a star system, spanning civilization in 50,000 years. They established contact with other species after sending machines outside of our star system, which led to them being approached by the Universal Assembly really quickly. When they first came into contact with other species, their home star system was divided into different power blocks, which had been in constant rivalry for centuries, and used their populations as expendable meat shields in large-scale skirmishes. When they were accepted into the Universal Assembly, and came to understand the absolute scale of the different species, races, cultures, and technologies that were out here, their petty empires crumbled and they united as one, standing proudly together to overcome these new realities and obstacles. The Universal Assembly at that time supposedly had member species and civilizations across millions of galaxies, and its scale was immense that its administrative capital city, Eshra, was a single world that had the living space of an entire galaxy, and took entire galaxies worth of resources to build over countless millennia. They essentially acted as peacekeepers, having the final goal of bringing peace and prosperity to every single sentient being, forever. Due to its scale, it was an organization that wasn't exempt from corruption, petty disputes, mismanagement, and conspiracies. But it managed to stay coherent, and did its best to attain its seemingly impossible end goal. Each member species could send one single representative to the assembly, had the right to an embassy at Eshra, had to send at least 0.1% of its population to UA's peacekeeping forces, whose entire manpower at that time was more than 1 trillion times larger than our entire population, had to pay taxes in exchange for protection, coupled with an innumerable amount of technological and social benefits. In only a couple of decades, our civilization went from a struggling militant one to a post-scarcity utopia, so the general sentiment towards the UA was extremely positive. 135 years after our species joined the UA, something strange happened. Thousands of galaxies away from their home galaxy, a conflict that would change everything came into existence. One that would change the course of history for the entire universe. Entire star systems were quickly falling apart, conquered by a murderous force one by one. Over the course of a single year, more than 10 million star systems fell to the hands of those calling themselves humans. Dangerous and militaristic species that came into contact with member species of the UA were not rare at all, but this time, the scale and the pace of the invasions, of the horrors, and the atrocities was starting to become a little alarming for UA Council, in charge of the local galactic group. They reacted by amassing a force of 500 trillion soldiers and sent them to deal with the problem. Supposedly, it was seen as a moderate force at the time, and some complained that the UA was underestimating the problem. Sadly, their concerns were rapidly proven right, because these 500 trillion were surprisingly not prepared at all for that enemy that they had to face. When the UA forces arrived to the most recently attacked worlds, they found no humans occupying them, but a gift that has been given to them after they retreated a couple star systems back. It is said that the gift was the state of the worlds and their inhabitants they were reduced to after having endured human occupation for mere weeks. Right after that, the entire UA forces sent to deal with these humans fell into disarray. Many of its commanding officers committed suicide, and trillions of soldiers swiftly followed them. Many other trillions just simply fell into a state of mental shock so extreme that they starved themselves to death without even realizing it, while the rest abandoned their positions and fled towards their homeworlds. The capital, Eshra, took note of the situation, after many millions of distress calls made by the commanding officers were sent to the attention of the ruling assembly in Eshra before they committed suicide. Grown adults with hundreds, if not thousands of years of military experience were reduced to crying like newborns, pleading for help and salvation, praying for safety. The calls were incomprehensible, gibberish, and horrific. Nothing was clear, but the assembly quickly realized that something was wrong. The news of the UA forces' mental annihilation quickly spread everywhere, including in our star systems, and the hordes of invading humans continued to expand rapidly throughout many galaxies simultaneously. In a matter of weeks, countless beings became refugees. Entire civilizations collectively abandoned their worlds, and fear was spreading everywhere. The humans were spreading like a horde in huge numbers. The reports from many soldiers of different vanquished armies who managed to escape death and capture were identical. The fanaticism with whom these humans were waging war was unprecedented, and nothing could stop them. Entire galaxies were being assaulted at once, and endless droves of sentient beings, with entire civilizations worth of populations desperately fleeing. The UA was trying to the best of its capabilities to tackle the situation, but too much was happening, too quick. Accordingly, our species fell into huge turmoil. The humans were hundreds of galaxies away from our ancestors, but the pace of their advance and the strange manner in which each armies sent by the UA, who were supposedly the best trained and equipped forces in the entire known universe, mentally crumpled each time they came across the human armies, changed everything. The scale of the refugee problem started entire conflicts, some being galactic in scale, with each empire, civilization, or faction fighting for the access to the best of ships and technologies that could give them the ability to escape as far away as possible. Our leaders and most prominent factions fell into huge disarray, with fiery debates engulfing our entire civilization, divided into those being prepared to stay and die if it goes down to it, and those wanting to flee as far away as possible. It became so bad that open conflict quickly erupted, culminating in the victory of the factions desiring to escape. Our ancestors then focused on taking as much resources as possible and powered everything into large generational void ships. Supposedly, many were left behind since there wasn't enough space for everybody, leaving a mental scar on our species that would last for generations. They then embarked on a 30,000-year-old journey to reach a destination, hoping to never be discovered by the humans, if they never get exterminated by somebody. During that 30,000-year-old journey, our species went through countless racial, ethnic, religious, political, and societal schisms, waged war against numerous other species they encountered, entire civilizations that were also fleeing from the humans, or ones living in complete ignorance of the situation. But the reports of the humans' expansions continued to follow them throughout all these generations, which helped our species still retain a semblance of cultural and societal coherence for so many years. Countless worlds, star systems, and entire galaxies continue to be found and attacked by the humans. The civilizations that were brave enough to stay and believe that they would somehow survive, or that the humans surely weren't that bad, met their ends horrifyingly. In the year 27978, since the Great Escape from our home system, Eshra was conquered by the humans, and with that, the Universal Assembly completely fell down subsequently. It is said that what happened to the denizens of Eshra under the hold of the humans was so terrifying that billions of species across the known universe decided to commit collective suicide. Many amongst our species during that time decided to take that route and urged for everybody else to follow them in death. But the rest of our ancestors bravely survived and overcame that horror, clinging on to those last few simmers of hope. In the year 32555, after the start of our escape, our ancestors finally reached uncharted space, beyond the known universe. They still continued that journey, until they reached this planet, that they have called Eshra, many centuries after the last time they ever heard of the humans' exploits throughout the known universe. Despite its name meaning salvation in the main language that used to be spoken by our species all those generations ago, this planet was bleak, far away from any settled space, and completely covered in perpetual darkness. They decided to establish themselves here by putting all of their efforts into living underground, in silence, hiding from any possibility of ever being discovered by anybody else. Having been restricted to living inside large ships in the void for millennia, severely impacted our species' psyche and physical traits, which made accommodation to this world effectively difficult at first. Many, many people died, but they believed that it was sacrifices that needed to be made. Over the course of many generations, we managed to thrive here, underground, in complete silence. Large-scale warfare amongst us was religiously prohibited, and we have managed to abide by many rules made for us to never attract attention for a long time. And for many thousands of years, we never heard of the humans, or any other species. Despite efforts being made for the primal fear and prudence of humans to be passed on from generation to generation, eventually we became complacent. Some started to doubt those legends. Some outright refused to believe that they were true. Others started the flames of curiosity for what's out there, of the countless things our species was depriving itself from due to what they considered being unfounded fears. Many regimes rose and fell that brutally suppressed all of these dissonant voices for generations, which led to many of our species feeling oppressed and wanting freedom. Freedom for them meaning the abandonment of having to live underground without ever seeing what's out there, or ever seeing the stars, the sky, the universe. And thus what was bound to happen, happened. The brutal regimes keeping our species underground collapsed due to revolution, and we went out in the surface. Frustrated at the sight of this bleak world, we aimed for the stars. Machinery was sent out there to know if other species actually existed beyond our world. For many decades, it was complete silence, and because of that, we started to believe that we were alone. If there's no signal, it's because all the humans and the other species annihilated one another, some thought. It's because there have never been any humans, and we are the only ones that ever existed. Thus the stars are our birthright, others believed. But then, it happened. 72 years after the very first machines were sent beyond this world, we finally got a signal back. It was a message. Someone, somehow, somewhere responded to us. We made sure for the machines that we sent to be able to make any receiver able to understand our language and communicate back in a manner that we would understand. The message was only a couple of seconds long, and it said this, whispering audibly. "We are humanity." The voice slivered for the empty silence surrounding it, each word dripping with malice, the breath behind it almost a hiss. "And we have found you."